Welcome to another episode of the Fertility Conversations podcast. Today we're joined by a lovely guest, a sister of mine from the continent, Doreen Thompson-Addo. She's a qualified career development and well-being coach who advocates passionately for pregnancy loss awareness. Her personal journey, marked by multiple early miscarriages, a late loss, and an ectopic pregnancy, inspired the creation of the Joy After Miscarriage. Through this platform, she strives to foster a community of support, break down societal taboos surrounding miscarriage, and serve as a beacon of hope and encouragement for those who have experienced the pain of pregnancy loss. She's married with a lovely daughter, her rainbow baby, and she joins us today to inspire and educate us. Welcome, Doreen, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ola. That's just lovely. Such a nice intro. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Same to you. Right
so back to start off, we usually say, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So you've mentioned a little bit there in the intro already. So my name's Doreen. I'm married to my wonderful husband, Reggie. We've been married coming up, I should know this, 13 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
It's going to be 13 years this year. I'm nearly 13 years married. We have a 6-year-old daughter. So as you rightly said, our angel, our rainbow baby. Our rainbow baby is going to be 7 this year. My day job is a careers consultant. So I work as a career development and well-being professional, helping people think about work and jobs, etc. And then on the side, like you said, I've started this platform called Joy After Miscarriage, which I know we'll talk about later. So that's kind of me, sort of, kind of high level in a nutshell. I am a child of God. I am a Christian. So today is Sunday. I've just got back from church.
Nice.
Inspired after going to church. I love the Lord. God is my everything. But even through this, this miscarriage journey that I've been through, my faith was impacted. But I can stand here today and say that, God is amazing in spite of everything we've gone through. So I am a firm believer, and I live in the UK, even though we're just about to experience a storm. I think this is later on this afternoon, and my friends in Ghana, where my heritage is from, they're making me jealous. Because it's nice and hot and warm in Ghana.
Always.
I'm complaining about the cold here.
Yes, always nice and hot in Ghana.
Always nice and hot. But yeah, I'm my Ghanaian heritage, born in Ghana, and then moved to the UK when I was a small child. So born in Ghana, but brought up in the UK.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And of course, we know that you went to church today. Back from church. What else do you like to do with your free time?
Gosh. So anyone that knows me knows I love being outdoors. So my husband and I were big outdoors fans. We love cycling, hiking, walking.
Wow.
We're very outdoorsy people. I love being outdoors. I love being in nature. I find nature very healing, very soothing. There's just something wonderful about being out in nature. What else do I enjoy? I love traveling. So
nice.
I haven't done much traveling recently, but I do love to travel. I do love exploring different cultures, tasting different foods, different parts of the world. So yeah, I really enjoy traveling. And spending time with family and friends. I like to laugh, Ola. Like I like being around people that make me, the belly, you're just belly laughing. I didn't do that for a long time during my kind of miscarriage journey, but I kind of rediscovered the beauty of just laughing and I love to watch comedies that make me laugh, be around people that make me laugh. If you get to know me, I'm a silly person. I like to do silly things. I like playing jokes and stuff. I should say, I think it's important as part of this conversation. I am 44 years old, and we can come back to that later. But I'm what some people might consider middle-aged or whatever. But I'm 44 years old, and I still like to have a good old laugh and try and keep myself healthy wherever possible. So my husband and I, we've made some New Year's goals to try and get fit, and we're going to try and keep to them as much as possible.
Add me to that calendar. Let me have a WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're not getting any younger. We need to,
exactly.
We need to start getting fit.
Definitely. So, thank you. Sounds like you have a really full, exciting life, which is so important, right? Because you need those laughters.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way, but we're being a lot more intentional now.
Right. So let's talk about your journey to parenthood.
Yes.
As much or as little as you'd like to share.
Yeah. So I've mentioned that we have a rainbow baby. Her name is Ariel. She's going to be 7. It's
nice. Ariel, is that like the
not Ariel, no. Like the Little Mermaid.
No, right. Because I knew that I saw that somewhere.
Anna, you are not the first person to say that, and you will not be the last.
Okay.
So Ariel is Ariel, but Ariel is Arielle, so it's slightly different.
Right.
But I get that everywhere I go.
Right. Okay.
So, I'm
that's good. I'm not the only one.
I'm used to it. So she's my only daughter, our only child, but she was actually my 7th pregnancy. Wow. And so our journey was one of multiple miscarriages. So my husband and I experienced 4 early miscarriages.
So sorry.
No, 5 early miscarriages. 5 early miscarriages. 1 late miscarriage. So we had 5 early miscarriages. So by early, I mean 12 weeks or less. And then we had 1 late miscarriage at 14 weeks, and 1 ectopic pregnancy. Now, any loss is terrible. It's I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But the physical trauma you go through, the emotional trauma you go through, the nerves that you go through when you become pregnant again, it's really difficult. But my husband and I, we decided to wait a couple of years after we got married to try for a child. And we were in our early 30s at the time, but never in a million years. And you don't, right, Ola, you don't think, oh, this could happen. So so we were just like, oh, well, we'll enjoy marriage before the kids come. We wanted to have maybe 2 or 3 children. Let's enjoy our marriage before these kids come and control us for another 18 years.
Yeah.
So we waited a couple of years, and then when we decided to start trying, I never thought that this would be the journey that I'd be going down. And I remember when I had my first miscarriage, it was such a complete just shock. It was like, what's going on? What is this? And you are never fully prepared for it. Even if you know what a miscarriage is, perhaps you've had others that perhaps have experienced it. Going through it yourself for that first time, you're never fully prepared for it. It happened, first thing in the morning. I was in bed. I kind of pulled the sheets over. Can I be quite open? Kind of pulled the sheets over, and there was kind of just blood everywhere. I was like, okay, this does not seem normal. Yeah. I started freaking out. We went to the hospital. And unfortunately, that's when they said, we've lost the miscarriage. We've had a miscarriage. And I think it just a little bit of a blur then. You know, the NHS give you leaflets and all of this kind of stuff. But I think in my mind, I was very much, and I think the NHS as well were very much like, this happens a lot. Lots of women have one miscarriage.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine the next time, you know? So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, this seems unusually normal. So surely the next time I get pregnant, everything's going to be fine, because that's what the doctors are saying. It's unlikely it's going to happen again. Then it happened again. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe something's not going right here. Yeah. And again, I was very much made to feel, do you know what, Doreen? Don't worry, you're going to be fine. You know, if you get to 3 miscarriages or more, which is rare, then we'll start investigating. So I was like, okay, it looks as if, you know, if I do have more than 3, they've got something in place. They'll figure out what's wrong and everything will be fine. Went through the 3rd one, and that's when things started to really get concerning for me. That's when I really started questioning my womanhood, questioning my faith, questioning what was going on. The testing that they claimed to do, I don't think was anything phenomenal. Like up till now, even up to today, I really don't know. Nobody has ever been able to definitively say what the issue has been. There has been talk of potentially PCOS and other things, but no one has ever been able to say this is the reason why you have been miscarrying. No one. So we had the 3rd miscarriage, and then the 4th one was when we had the late miscarriage. And that was particularly traumatic because I was already nervous because of all the other miscarriages that I had. Yeah. But I think with this particular one, what was hard, Ola, was that here in the UK, we have this kind of get to 12 weeks, there's this thing about the 12-week mark. If you get to 12 weeks, you passed your
exactly, that's it.
You're going to make it to the end. So I remember getting to 12 weeks. And for me and my husband, 12 weeks was like, oh my gosh, praise God. We've gone further than we've ever gone before. We've never gone beyond 9, 10, 11. We've got to 12 weeks. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. We got to 13 weeks. Oh my gosh, maybe I can start getting excited. Maybe I can start thinking about names. Maybe I can start thinking about baby shower. We get to 14 weeks. Everything's okay. And then towards the end of the 14th week, I started having cramps, and they didn't feel like, it didn't feel normal. So I remember going to the early pregnancy unit, the EPU. The EPU, seriously, Ola, that place became almost like my second home. I was there every single niggle, I'm always rushing to the EPU. So I went to the EPU to explain to them that I'm having these cramps and they're making me feel a bit nervous. No bleeding or anything, just unusual cramps. And I have the letter with me. They sent me home saying that I had constipation and all I should do is increase my fiber. So I thought, okay, but you know, I've already had 3 previous miscarriages. Am I not considered high risk to you? Do you want to kind of investigate further? They didn't do any of that. They sent me home saying it's just, you know, baby was fine. So they did the scan. Baby was kicking, heartbeat was strong. And they just said, oh, it's constipation. I should go home and eat some fiber. The next day, my husband was out. He was planning a stag do for my now brother-in-law. So he was out doing a stag do. I was at home. Ola. I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. I started, I didn't realize it then, but at the time I started having contractions, and it was the worst pain I have ever experienced. I called my sister because my sister works in A&E. So I called my sister and she told me to call an ambulance straight away. So I called an ambulance because I was literally, I was on the floor. I couldn't move. I was in such pain. I couldn't move. So I called the ambulance. Ambulance came and came to check me out. And I was in excruciating pain. I could barely walk. They had to take me into the hospital, the ambulance. And then what happened on the way to the ambulance was that I gave birth on the way to the hospital. And I'll never forget it because there was a lovely man with me in the ambulance. He was sitting next to me on our way to the hospital. And I remember something just passing out of me. And I freaked out. And I said to the guy next to me, I said, something's happened. Something's happened. I had a cloth over me.
Right.
I said, something's happened. Something's happened. The man then pulled the cloth up to see what I was talking about. No word of a lie. He was a white man. The way his face went pale, I just knew something terrible had. I mean, I knew anyway because it didn't feel like it was a blood clot or anything like that. It felt like something had passed, and I could just tell from the man's face that I had given birth, and I just lost it. From that particular moment, I lost it. My husband wasn't with me. He went straight to the hospital that I had gone to. He met me there. My pastor's wife had been notified, and bless her, she came to the hospital as well. And long story short, we lost our son that afternoon. It's a bit of a blur because I think looking back on it, I think what I had unintentionally done, I think I'd started to block some of the trauma out because it was too much to deal with. But I remember at that time, they did bring the baby back to hospital room. We spent some time with him. I didn't know it was a boy at the time. They did some tests and they confirmed it later. But we spent some time with the baby. And then, they took the baby away, and I just, for a long time, I think I blanked that experience out. So I never took any photos. So things that a lot of people that I see do, I didn't do. I didn't take any photos. I didn't hold the child. I didn't do any handprints and footprints. I didn't even organize the funeral. I just couldn't, and I guess to anyone that's perhaps going through this, or to anyone that's perhaps been in the same position, you can feel guilty looking back for not doing that. But I would say to anyone, please don't feel guilty. I have come to accept that was what I could manage at that time. I couldn't physically manage anything else. It was too traumatic. And I do sometimes battle with guilt for not taking pictures, for not having something to remind me of our son apart from a memory. But God knows, he knows, he cares. And I know my son is in heaven, and I am comforted by that. And I no longer walk in that guilt of not doing more. But that was a very traumatic experience. And then after that, I'm laughing now because it's not even funny, but sometimes I'm like, geez, after that, I then, that was my fourth. My fifth was then another early pregnancy. And then my sixth was the ectopic. I didn't even know what an ectopic was. I'd never heard of anything called an ectopic. But long story short, with my sixth pregnancy, the embryo, the egg was growing on my fallopian tube, and I hadn't realized it. Again, I was at home. I started experiencing severe pain in my abdomen and started feeling extremely dizzy. I didn't feel well. Was taken to the hospital by my husband, and that's when they discovered I was having internal bleeding because my fallopian tube had ruptured. So I had to stay in hospital and have an operation to remove my fallopian. So my fallopian tube was not repairable. It had to be removed. And I remember saying to the professional at the time, what does that mean in terms of my chances of having a child? And it's amazing how the body works, because the healthcare professional said, you are still able to have children even with one fallopian tube. I couldn't fathom it then.
Yeah.
But later on, I discovered that, you know, even with one fallopian tube, the ovary can still move to the other fallopian tube. And I mean, it blows my mind how amazing the body can be. So I lost one fallopian tube, and I say this to encourage anyone that perhaps has had an ectopic pregnancy, because our rainbow baby was born with one fallopian tube naturally, with one fallopian tube. And so, you know, she is a miracle. She is a blessing. We did try again for a child after our child was born, in March 2020, literally as people were talking about as people. So I got pregnant in February 2020, and then I miscarried in March 2020, literally about like a week before we went into lockdown. And it was then that, you know, my husband and I soon after really had to start asking questions as to whether or not we want to continue trying for children. Do we want to perhaps try alternative methods and routes? And we just made that hard decision that we were going to stop. Like we weren't going to try. You know, there are lots of other pathways we could have taken, but for us personally, the decision we chose was we're going to stop. And so we've decided not to try, not to take any other methods. And that's our decision. And people need to respect that. We're happy with that. And so, so we have one daughter. You know, it's not what we had thought we were going to have, you know, but that is life. And, you know, we're learning to live with what we have and make the most of what we have, even though we wanted to perhaps have two or three children. So that's a very long-winded version of my story.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so sorry for your losses. It's just so much. I mean, we're so thankful for your rainbow baby and God's mercy and grace, but that was a lot.
It's hard. And I think it's only recently, I'd say in the last couple of years, that I've really kind of I've really sat down and thought, okay, this experience it's a lot. And I think for some people, perhaps maybe it's a coping mechanism, but I think for some people, we inadvertently just block it out, because having to deal with, and it doesn't matter whether it's one miscarriage or 11, it's traumatic, and every individual has to find a way to try and manage that. And we all manage it in different ways. There isn't one right way of managing it, and there isn't a wrong way of managing it. We deal with grief and trauma in very different ways. And I think for me, looking back, part of my coping was to block it out. To not dwell on it, because I think if I did, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, I did go through depression. I went through a period of real isolation. I withdrew. And by withdraw, I think sometimes on the outside of things, people might think, oh, Doreen's fine. She's smiling, everything's going well. But internally, I had withdrawn. I wasn't being genuine. And it's only been like in the last couple of years that I've really been able to sit and go through everything. So even recently, in the last couple of years, I actually sat down and dated when my miscarriages happened, because every time it did happen, I was like, this is just too much. I couldn't. So, you know, in the last couple of years, I dated them and figured out what happened. I was able to look back at my medical notes and see what the doctors had written. And yeah, it's only in the last couple of years I've kind of gone there. And I think for many people, we cope in various ways. And I think we have to understand and respect people's ways of coping. You might not always agree with it.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to kind of trauma and grief, people deal with it in very different ways. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm glad you can smile about it now, because as you highlighted, it was a lot. And of course, going through that, it must have been so much, because, and again, it's not a topic or an area that people speak a lot about. So how were you even finding support? I mean, I know that you mentioned that you blotted out, which was one of your own coping mechanisms. But was there any support apart from yourself and your spouse together? I mean, again, I noted that your pastor's wife came at some point, one of the losses. But did anyone understand? Did anyone that has experienced something similar?
Yeah. On reflection at the time, so this was, we're talking, it kind of started around, we got married in 2011. We started trying sort of late 2012, 2013. And at that time, there wasn't sort of, there's a wonderful community now, you know, social media, people advocating. There's so much going on now, which I think is amazing, Ola. Like what you're doing, kudos to you. You are such a blessing. You're such a blessing in this space. You really are such a blessing. But back then, I didn't see all of this big community. I mean, even if it was there, I don't think I was actively looking for it, because like I said, I think I just blocked a lot of this out. So the support wasn't there. And I think that is largely because there was still, and to an extent there still is, this stigma around miscarriage and baby loss. So it was never a case where I had my second, third, fourth miscarriage and I was able to say to people, guys, I've miscarried again. Guys, I've miscarried again. Guys, if anything, it got to the point where I think the more I miscarried, the more I just withdrew, because I didn't want people maybe thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong with her? And, you know, I was very much involved in the church at the time. And, you know, again, I didn't want people perhaps over spiritualizing things. You begin to think about, you know, is it because I don't have enough faith? Is it because did I do something? Am I being cursed? Did someone else? I mean,
did you not pray enough?
Did I not pray enough? Did I not give enough tithe and offering? You know, what am I being punished? Which is not the case. No. So if anyone is thinking that, please do not believe those lies. But it's hard not to think about those sorts of things. And so I didn't. My biggest support was my husband. He has been absolutely amazing. And my immediate family. So I've got two younger sisters whom I love dearly. One of them I mentioned was one of my younger sisters who's a nurse. She was brilliant. And my middle sister has always been such a big advocate. She's always, you know, she will speak up for me in rooms when perhaps I can't speak up for myself. So my immediate family have been amazing, you know. And my parents, I've got to say, my parents have been wonderful, considering they are quite traditional West African.
Yeah, and that's where they grew up, right? You know? I mean, you grew up here, I mean, in London, but not them, right? So
no. So I didn't know how they would take it, but you know, surprisingly, my parents have been super supportive. You know, I was nervous about even talking to them about being open about my journey, thinking about what they would say. I think, you know, I think they're probably like, look, Doreen's going to do what she's going to do.
I know, right?
There's no point in telling her no.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, yeah, I never had, no, I never had like a support network of people, say praying for me or checking in on me, because the reality is very few people knew. A lot of people didn't know until much later. But like I said, it's wonderful to see now that there's much more of a push to be open about it, to talk about it, if you're comfortable talking about it, to take away the shame and the stigma that is surrounded by it. There's no shame, there's no stigma. It's a health condition, and you know, just as we're happy to talk about having a cough or breaking your leg or whatnot, you know, there's you know, it's a health condition that needs to be treated, and we should be able to talk about it like anything else. But I think we still have a long way to go when it comes to, yeah, when it comes to pregnancy loss.
Definitely. But thank you for choosing to speak out, to, you know, to share your experience and speak out. That's really amazing, because regardless of where you go across the world, there's still a lot of taboos associated with pregnancy loss. Well, certainly in certain cultures, it might even be more, or whatever spiritualities might also be attached to it that might make people not want to speak. So thank you for choosing to speak in spite of all of that.
Yeah,
that couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And I think, you know, particularly as a Christian, I, you know, no, God never promised that the Christian life was going to be easy.
Don't we think it should be?
We think it should be. And, you know, I never knew what battles would come my way. This is not a battle I was ever expecting. Never, ever, ever. But I think what's important to remember, I guess, from a Christian perspective, as hard as it was at the time to believe that, because I questioned God, I asked him why, I questioned my faith. There was so much going on in terms of my faith. But I realized, you know, as a Christian, you know, no one ever, God never promises that life would be easy. And I didn't know, like I said, what my battle would be. And for whatever reason, this has been my battle, dealing with infertility and loss. That has been one of my biggest tests of faith, one of my biggest tests of trust, it's just been big. And I wouldn't say that I passed or whatever it is, because, you know, I was in a bad place. But the wonderful thing I think to remember is that it's okay. It was okay for me to question and ask why, and to not be okay. Like, God understands it all. And I think sometimes as Christians, we need to stop with this whole, he won't give me more than I could handle, because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. This is not something but I could not handle this. And so I don't want to hear all of this, you know, God won't give you more than you could handle, because you're essentially saying that I should be able to handle this.
Yeah.
And it was my pastor's wife that she explained it beautifully. And she said, Doreen, sometimes she said there will be instances in life that you cannot handle. That's the reality. Losing a child, it's not something you can just say, I can handle this. No. She said, you know, sometimes in life you will have moments where you cannot handle it. When you can't handle it, God can. And that's where we need to lean on him, because by saying God won't give you more than you can handle, you're almost saying, well, I just give me more, I can handle all of this.
Yeah.
This is not something that you can handle. Loss is hard. It's not something that you should be handling alone. And she was the one that kind of reminded me that it's okay to feel broken and at a loss. That's when you reach, that's when he is able, that's when he will be your strength, because you can't handle it. And that was a wonderful, for me, that was a really powerful reminder, because it reminded me that it's okay to not be okay. I think sometimes we can say these kind of platitudes that make you want to think, oh God, I need to be a strong woman, I need to be smiling all the time. It's okay not to be okay. God understands.
Yeah, definitely. So at what point did you then think to start your platform, Joy After Miscarriage?
So I've been thinking about it for a while. But I think once I joined sort of Instagram, and I could see, that there was a bit of a community around there, I kind of started thinking, okay, maybe I could create something where I could perhaps share my story or encourage others to share theirs, and be part of this community that's openly talking about miscarriage and pregnancy loss. And I think one of the things that made me perhaps take that step was realizing that Black women in particular were, for whatever reason, being disproportionately affected when it came to pregnancy loss, when it came to baby mortality. And even recently, I'm hearing now that, reports are coming out that, Black women are less likely to receive IVF treatment. I mean, there's just a lot. So I wanted to perhaps do more in that space as a Black woman, because a lot of the statistics and the data were showing that we are disproportionately affected. However, a lot of the community that I was seeing, they didn't look like me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the community that kind of talks about miscarriage, etc., I didn't see a lot of Black faces. I didn't see a lot of women of color, and that could be for whatever reason. But I wanted to, I wanted to be part of that representation. I wanted to be part of that community that's like, look, I am a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced loss. I am happy to advocate and talk about my story and tell people that they're not alone, and support in advocating, etc. So I think, part of me perhaps stepping out was to be a bit more of a representative face.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can, representation matters. And I think if you're going into these spaces and perhaps you're not seeing individuals like you that maybe understand some of the kind of the nuances that we might face in terms of culture, in terms of religion, etc., you might just think, oh, okay, well, I'm the only one that must be going through this because I don't see anyone like me, when actually that's not true. So yeah, part of the reason of setting up Joy After Miscarriage was to be a bit of a representative face, but also, Joy After Miscarriage is also about saying to people that there is joy after miscarriage. There is joy that is, you can live a life of joy, you can live a full life, you can live a happy life around the grief and the trauma that you have been through. So my platform is very much about kind of encouraging kind of joy. It's okay to not be okay, but similarly, Ola, it's okay to be okay. And you should not feel. And this thing, I think sometimes we almost can feel guilty for
Why are you
coming out
happy?
and say, yes, yeah. I want to show people it's okay to be okay. You're healing, you're moving forward, you're reaching out for life again. Hold on to that. That is fine. It doesn't make you less of a mother. It doesn't make you someone that's forgetting what you've been through. You're someone that's moving forward, and that is okay. I think for a long time for me, like I said, I went through a lot of guilt for not doing certain things, and it just made me feel guilty. Oh, I didn't have a funeral. I didn't do this. I don't remember all the dates. I felt terrible. And one day I just said to myself, like, this has got to stop. You know, you've been through a lot. You've had to do what you needed to do to cope. And it's okay to be joyful. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to smile and still not forget what you've been through. You know, you're not forgetting, but it's okay. And, you know, I sometimes, Ola, I think about the miscarriages that I've had and perhaps the children that I may have had. And I ask myself, you know, if my kids were alive today, what would they be saying to me? And I literally hear them be like, Mom, you need to go jogging. You're getting fat. Come on. You need to put on your makeup. You know, you need to cut your toenails. They're looking a bit crusty. Like, take care of yourself.
Oh,
I can hear them. You know, your hair's looking a bit picky. Come on. I can hear them, like, you know, live your life, book that flight and travel, go on dinner with your partner, call that friends that you want to call. You know, I do think about, you know, what my children would probably be saying. And so to honor them, I am trying to live a life more joyfully. And so that's again one of the reasons Joy After Miscarriage was born, to encourage people to reach out for moments of joy, and reach out for moments of joy unapologetically. Don't feel you don't have to feel guilty. You will never forget the losses you've had. You'll never forget the children you've lost. You just won't. You know, when we lose people who, you know, perhaps who are alive, whether that's a parent or whatever, you know, we still continue kind of living. We don't forget them. We remember them in our hearts. We remember them. We go through that same level of grief. But I don't know what it is. I think, you know, when we go through perhaps a miscarriage, whether it's because, you know, for some people it's like, oh, well, there's this perhaps assumption that because we didn't give birth to I don't know what it is, but, you know, I just want to encourage people that it's, like I said, it's okay to not be okay, but it's perfectly okay to also be okay. It's a journey, and we're all on a different, our journeys are all different, and where we're at on that journey differs. And like any journey, you'll have moments when things are going well, and you'll have moments when things are not going well. That's absolutely okay. But, you know, I really want to remind people that there is light, and there is life that can be lived joyfully after a loss.
So well said, Doreen. And I think it's so important that people understand that, because like you said, that guilt is very common. That have you grieved enough? Is it, should you really be laughing, even though it's just been 3 months or 1 year or 2 years?
Exactly.
You know, that other person didn't laugh for 3 years, whatever. You know, it's not, there is no comparison. There is no right amount of grief.
There isn't at all. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone's coping mechanism, you know, is different. And I know a friend of mine who, you know, she lost her baby, and she was back at work almost immediately. And some people might be thinking, you're not grieving enough. Why are you back at work? But for her, that was her coping mechanism. She did not want to be at home because she knew she might be pondering on it or whatever. For her, what worked for her was going to work and doing whatever it is that she wanted to do. And it's not to say that she won't grieve in different ways, but that was what she wanted to do. And I think we have to respect people's decisions and not be so, you know, not be so overly judgmental. Everyone's journey is different.
Yes, so well said.
Yeah, everyone's journey is different.
And we should allow people the space to be whatever They want to be and respect their journeys
Mm.
and boundaries and decisions.
Yes.
Like you highlighted as well. If someone says to you, they're no longer trying, or this is where family size is gonna stop, it's okay to let them be without saying, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, or
Honestly, the number of times, and I will continue, but the number of times I hear people, so when are you going to give your daughter a brother or sister? When is number 2 coming? When is number 2 coming? I prophesy, number 2 is going to be twins.
So you're just like, what? Oh, Lord.
Let's not even talk about prophecies, but my goodness. Yeah. You just have to, it's interesting. It's interesting we say this because, and again, I think it still goes back to the taboo, because a lot of people will be like, when is number 2 coming? And I don't say to them, number 2's not coming because my husband and I have decided to stop trying due to several miscarriages. I guess that's what I want to be bold enough to say that. But they'll say, oh, when is number 2 coming? And I'll just be like, I just don't say anything. And so even now there is still, there's still, I'm still very, I'm still mindful in who I share my story with, and I guess how open I am about it. But people will claim that it's time for me to have a second child, and I don't always tell them then and there that we've decided to stop trying. And I think many of us we're still very much
it's hard to, right? How many people are you gonna tell? And then somebody like, I'm not ready for this conversation today, because then
I'm just not ready.
They're gonna come back at you like, oh well, this is this and that. Like, okay, not today.
Not today, exactly, not today.
So hence the reason you're just like, okay, sure, thanks.
Yeah, exactly,
and moving along. It's almost like you're picking your battles, right?
Yes, you have to pick your battles. It's so important.
Well said. Thank you, Doreen. For anyone listening, and of course, being touched by all that you shared today, it's been amazing listening, and wanting to reach out to you to connect, perhaps for support. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, you can follow me on my I've only got an Instagram page. Joy After Miscarriage. That's my Instagram page. It's still kind of fairly new-ish. But I guess my intention for Joy After Miscarriage is to, raise awareness and advocate, particularly around the experiences that I've personally lived through. So that would be early miscarriage, late miscarriage, and an ectopic pregnancy. So I kind of want to advocate around that, and also just sort of inspire hope, encourage people to grab onto those moments of joy, whatever that might look like for you. I have another good friend of mine who we're planning a few events this year for women that have gone through miscarriage or baby loss, and the first one is going to be a dance class that we're organizing.
Oh, that's nice.
We're organizing a dance class. Details are going to be coming out soon. We were going to do it
on your Instagram. Then the details will be
details will be on our Instagram. But we want to organize events where if you feel like, because the thing is with miscarriage and loss, sometimes you can lose a sense of who you once were. And then I hear this a lot, when people talk about loss, you feel like you lose a part of yourself. And I guess what we're trying to do with Joy After Miscarriage is to be like, if you're the type of person that you used to love dancing and you want, come out, it's a safe space. We're gonna teach you an Afrobeat dance routine. You can mix with other like-minded individuals. We can share stories. And again, it's a moment of joy for those individuals. And so we want to create, a couple of opportunities for people to just come together and spark those kind of joyful moments. And like I said to you before, I do love to laugh. And I think, I'm not a funny person, but I will try and see if I could use my platform to make people giggle.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah,
it's so important. on these journeys.
It is.
You need those moments of laughter and joy and just having a good time.
Yeah. So that's really, I want that page to be a page of kind of light and love and hope. I'm not good with social media. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm learning.
But you will get a response. So do reach out to her. Reach out to Doreen. She will respond to you for sure.
No, definitely.
Thank you so much. And Doreen, if you had to go back in time to the, I don't know, 21-year-old Doreen, knowing all that you know now, what would you tell her?
It's such an interesting question. But I think for me, I would probably tell, honestly, I'd honestly say to 21-year-old Doreen that in life, things may not always go the way you want them to go. Things may not always go the way you planned for them to go. You know, we make plans, we make dreams and goals, and it's so important to reach for them, absolutely. But sometimes they may not necessarily go the way you intended. And if that does happen, I would have encouraged 21-year-old Doreen to be reminded that it's not permanent. It won't last forever. You might go through a period of something that knocks you. You didn't expect it. It's not part of the plan. This is not in my goal. This is not in my 5-year goal. This is not how things were supposed to be. This is not what I had signed up for. I would have said to 21-year-old Doreen, it won't last forever. You might think it's gonna last forever, but it will not last forever. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. You will laugh again. You will smile again. So I'm getting emotional. Sorry. Sorry, Ola.
Okay. No.
Sorry, you will. Because no one expects to go through this. No one signs up for loss. No one signs up for miscarriages and stuff. You don't sign up for it. But you know, I would absolutely say to my younger self, it's not permanent. It won't last forever. Life can and will be worth living again. And I hope that I'm a living testimony of that. But this is the thing: if you had told me 10 years ago what I was going to go through, I would be like, no way. I can't do this. No way. It's not going to be possible. I won't be able to survive this. But I'm standing here today saying that, you know, it's, you can survive it. You can. And it's not permanent. That's what I would tell my 21-year-old. Yeah. Yep. So slimmer,
Amazing.
help yourself.
Oh, you look amazing. What are you talking about? I have way too much to eat at Christmas, and quite frankly, I still think it's Christmas.
Thank you.
I keep eating.
Goodness.
Oh my! I definitely need to know that it's time to, you know, start working out and eating less. But hey, thank you so much for sharing, Doreen.
No.
Any final words as a wrap up for anyone?
I would just say, you know, to anyone who's going through this, please do not believe that you are alone. You are not alone at all. I would also say, I think one of the things that I think partly because, you know, we go through traumatic experiences, but one of the things I would encourage people to do, they can, is to advocate for yourself. You know, I think I kind of just trusted our healthcare system to everything they said, I'm like, yep, fine. I never questioned anything. I didn't, so perhaps, ask for a second opinion. I didn't do anything like that. And I think if you're going through this, don't be ashamed to push back, perhaps question, ask for things that perhaps you've heard in trusted sources. Do that, because you never know where it could lead you. I didn't do any of that at all. And looking back, I wish if I had this information and resource, maybe my story could have been a little bit different. And I think this is where being open and talking about it is important, because if you perhaps don't feel that you can advocate for yourself because you're going through something, challenging, or you're not ready, by speaking out about it, like people like you, Ola, like what you're doing is so amazing, because even though perhaps there might be someone who doesn't feel like speaking out, your platform is raising awareness and information and sharing things that perhaps people might not have known about. So I'm encouraging people to, to be open and to kind of advocate for themselves. And I'd say, there's this lovely American lady that I follow called Tabitha Brown. She's just this phenomenal American lady. And she has these wonderful sayings. And one saying is, because that's my business. That's my business. That's my business. And, I think in this space sometimes, with all good intentions, people will say, why don't you try IVF, or have you considered adoption, or auntie so-and-so had a child at 49 years old, you should keep going. And I just want to be like, well, the decision that I've made is my husband's and I's decision, and that's my business. So I guess, I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's okay to make the decisions that you need to make. Sometimes that decision might be, we're not going to try anymore. Sometimes the decision might be, I don't want to adopt. I don't want to go through IVF. And that is absolutely fine. That is your business, no one else's. And so, I'd love to just, remind people, it's your business, no one else's business.
Love it.
Oh, Tabitha Brown, I love her.
Love it. I've said her before. I don't follow her, but I'm gonna check her out.
Yeah, that's my business.
And it is really, right?
It is.
We should respect that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doreen. It really has been amazing having you here. And I'm so sorry for your losses.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you for sharing and choosing to put your face out there to speak about this, because again, it is so important to find, when you're in the depth of loss and grief, going online or anywhere and finding somebody who has been through something similar can be so life-changing, right? Because you feel like there is somebody else. Okay, she understands.
Yeah, definitely.
I can listen to her story. She's laughing now, so there must be hope of laughter in the future. She coped somehow. Perhaps I can learn how she did. Perhaps I can connect with her. It's not just me. It's not something I've done. It's not a punishment.
Yeah.
It is so important.
It is so important
to see those faces and those platforms, letting you know it's not just you. No. So thank you for choosing to speak out, because it's not easy. Again, like I said earlier, pregnancy loss is highly taboo subject in any culture, but in ours, in the sense that you're of Ghanaian descent, I'm Nigerian, and of course in many other cultures, there's additional potential issues and concerns that surround it.
These additional layers we need to deal with.
So choosing to speak out in spite of all that is amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you. And God bless you for your platform. It's a massive blessing. And I am inspired by what you do. I see you out there and just this event and this place. I'm just like, wow, you're doing something So God bless you. And I hope to see you in person to give you a great...
Amen, and you too. I'm going to see you. Let's do it that dances. If I'm around in London, definitely want to come move.
Definitely.
Learn some new steps. Yes, for
Definitely.
sure. Perhaps we'll grab coffee sometime.
That would be amazing.
Yes, thank you so much for making the time to come here, and definitely look forward to having you again in the near future. And if I'm at any of one of your shows, we'll definitely be live streaming that and letting people know what's happening and promoting it. Thank you for all that you're doing.
So much. You've been amazing. Thank you for having me on your platform.
Thank you for being here.
Take care.